Good morning. If this is your first time on my channel, my name is Julia. I am in my kitchen again this morning, trying to get a little bit of breakfast prepped for today, the next few days, but also for some food to put in the pantry. I'm 12 weeks postpartum with my first child and finally feeling like I actually have a little bit of time and bandwidth to get some cooking done. So I'm feeling motivated today to get some baked oatmeal made for the week, as well as some granola baked up to put in the pantry. I am pretty tired this morning. I do have a 12-week-old and he is usually a really good sleeper, but he woke up last night at 3 a.m. crying, and he doesn't normally do that. So our sleep is not the best with an infant, and getting what we normally get interrupted has sort of thrown me for a loop. But you know what? It's all good. I got some dark circles. That's life, isn't it? The first thing I'm gonna get cooked up today is some baked oatmeal. The base recipe I'm using for this is from Becky at Acre Homestead. I will link the recipe down below. Basically, it is a super flexible base recipe, and then you can sort of add in whatever you want. I have made multiple different versions of this baked oatmeal, but today I'm just going to be making peach baked oatmeal. It's just like super hearty, but also really yummy. My husband is not a big oatmeal fan in general, but he does really like this baked oatmeal. So I'm gonna get that whipped up. Becky's recipe makes twice as much as what I'm making, so I'm halving her recipe. We just don't go through enough oatmeal in a week. I suppose I could make a large batch and just put half of it in the freezer, but you know, it's easy enough to just make what we need. This recipe does call for a lot of eggs, so in the half recipe there's 5, and I just have to show you. Look how beautiful these eggs are. My executive director at work, her parents have a farm in Indiana, and she brings us beautiful farm fresh eggs. I know eggs are not the most expensive thing. Obviously they had their kind of crazy price increase. Maybe that was even about a year ago, and they're back down, but a full batch of this does take 10 eggs, so I'm happy to make this when I have free eggs, and they are farm fresh, which makes it that much better. I actually think one of these is a conventional egg. You can see the difference. Now, granted, these are like cheap Aldi eggs that I buy versus these beautiful farm fresh ones, but the difference is kind of striking. The great thing about this recipe is that you really can just throw everything directly into your dish and then just mix it up in there. Before you come at me, I know that liquid and solid measure are not the same, but they're close enough, so that's what I'm doing. I have oat milk. You can use whatever kind of milk you prefer. I have some brown sugar here. This is homemade brown sugar. You can make brown sugar with white granulated sugar and molasses. I'm gonna put about 1/4 cup in there. Put in a little bit of salt just to balance the flavors. I have the remains of my last batch of vanilla extract. I made a new batch, or I started a new batch in my last video. I can link that for you if you're interested in seeing how I do that. So right now, I'll just put in a little bit of that beautiful homemade vanilla. Now I'm gonna grab out my cutting board here. I did use this morning already, and I have a can of peaches in white grape juice. They definitely taste better when you put them in syrup, in heavy syrup. I'm trying to be a little bit conscious and make a slightly healthier decision. So I'm gonna fish these out and just give them a little chop. I prefer them to be in sort of bite-sized morsels throughout. I don't know if it's like childhood nostalgia or what, but I love canned peaches. I never really bought them unless I needed them for a recipe or something, but I had some in the house probably for this oatmeal when I was pregnant, and sometimes I would end up just opening a can from my pantry and just eating them. I mean, it's fruit. It's not bad. I'm just gonna quickly give all of these a chop. As I'm getting this mixed up, I'm realizing I probably should have sprayed the bottom of this pan with some cooking spray just to help it not stick. But it's a little too late for that, and I've definitely forgotten to spray it before, and like, it's fine. It's just not ideal. So it's not gonna ruin anything, but I wish I would have remembered. Wow, the yolks made this so yellow. This is so beautiful. Oh shoot, I should have been preheating my oven. Now that this is all mixed, I'm just gonna drop in my peaches and give this another stir to get all of those evenly distributed. And the only other thing I need to do with this is dot some butter on top of it. This is not nearly as much butter as the recipe calls for, but this is all that I have that is not frozen in my freezer right now, so I'm just gonna use what I have, and it's gonna be delicious. I'm sure it would be just as good if you left out the butter, but it does give it like a nice little extra delicious factor. I use salted butter, and you get sort of this delicious, like salty, fatty pop. Now I'll just wait for my oven to come up to temperature, and I will pop that in for, I think, like 35 to 45 minutes. I'll have to double check the recipe. I will check it a little sooner just because I am making a smaller batch than what the recipe originally calls for, but it does tend to take pretty much just as long. While I'm waiting for the oven to come to temperature, I'm going to get started on my granola. Luckily, these both bake at the same temperature. The granola does not bake for quite as long, but I can put them both in the oven at the same time. For the granola, all this has to get mixed in a large mixing bowl. I do not know if I have enough oats to make a full batch of this. The full batch calls for 4 cups. So I'm gonna start and just see how much I have. I might only be able to get 2 cups out of this, so a half batch. Yep, unfortunately, I am down to the bottom of my oats, which is fine. I'll just make a half. Normally I keep extras of all these pantry staples in my pantry, but in this postpartum period, I have not been on top of that stuff. So oats are going on the grocery list. The recipe calls for 1.5 cups of nuts or seeds. I tend to just do nuts, and last time I did a combination of almonds and pecans, and that was really yummy. So I'm not really even gonna measure this. Basically 3/4 cup of each. So that's about, oh, that's for the full recipe. So I'm having it, so that's probably about 1/4 cup. I could probably do a little bit more. I'll take a little bit out of this new bag. And then we'll do the same with some pecans. Break up some of the bigger pieces. You could give these a chop. Oh, I love pecans. They just smell so mapley. I don't know, delicious. I'm gonna put in just about 1/4 teaspoon of salt again, just to help balance flavors. I do need more salt to go on my grocery list as well. And we'll do about 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. Again, I'm not gonna measure, I'm just kinda gonna do what feels right. I'll give all these a toss together to mix them, and then we're gonna add the wet ingredients. For a half batch, I'm going to need 1/4 cup of melted coconut oil. I had my coconut oil sitting in front of the exhaust heat of my oven to see if I could get it melted and not have to put something in the microwave to melt. That is only about 1/8 cup, so I'm gonna just plop this right back in front of that heat and let it keep melting so I can get my half cup without having to use the microwave. In the meantime, I will add about 1/4 cup of maple syrup. You can also use honey or use honey instead. I prefer maple syrup. Well, to be honest, I've never used honey, but I really love maple. So this is a 1/2 cup measure, so I'm just gonna eyeball about 1/2. That'll go in. And again, I'll just toss in a little bit of vanilla. That's probably way more than I need for a recipe this size, but you know what? Doesn't bother me. I think my plan has failed. This is not melting fast enough, and in fact, I am completely warping the container by putting it in front of the heat. Not that it really matters, but I think what I'll do is just, I really don't want to dirty another dish. I'm going rogue. I'm just gonna scoop a little bit and put it right in. Now I'm gonna mix all of this together, making sure that all of the oats get coated, nothing is left dry. We want every morsel to be delicious. I'm going to get this spread on my baking sheet, flatten it out. This granola doesn't make the absolute best clusters, so if you like a really clustery, crunchy granola like that, you probably need to use more sugar. Honey might actually be better than maple syrup if you want those big, crunchy clusters, but I just like a little crunch no matter which way, if it's clusters or just yummy toasted oats. And this is kind of perfect timing because there's just about 24 minutes left on the granola. So my timer is already set because this needs, I think, 21 to 24 minutes, and you just have to toss it once halfway in between. So this timer is good for both of them, but I will set my microwave timer for like 12 minutes through just so I can remember to toss it. And now we're done. I'm gonna get the kitchen cleaned up and I'll pull these out of the oven when they're ready. My timer just went off. We have our granola and our baked oatmeal and an unhappy baby. This granola has to cool completely before you can package it, put it anywhere. This is probably great to eat hot. I mean, we'll let it cool a little bit, but this will be breakfast for today. And I'm gonna go run and feed a hungry baby. You know, while I'm at it in the kitchen, I might actually whip up another batch of freezer waffles. I was thinking I would make a double batch because in a recent video you saw I got a larger waffle iron, so now I can make 5 times as many waffles at a time. However, I don't think I have enough flour for that either. So flour also needs to go on the grocery list. I'm just gonna make a single batch, but I should be able to get this whipped up really fast and then get those thrown in the freezer. I'm gonna use the same bowl that I used before. I already washed it out, but it's just my large mixing bowl. And the other ingredients I need are sugar, salt, baking powder, eggs, milk, coconut oil, and vanilla. We've got a baby with the hiccups over there, but I'm gonna get this batter thrown together in no time and get those waffles cooked up. After all the strife of trying to melt the coconut oil without needing to dirty another dish, here I am dirtying another dish, but I'm making another recipe. So I'm gonna get 1/2 cup of coconut oil into the microwave to melt. I'm just estimating here. Usually I'm pretty good at estimating it though. Let's see how close I was. It's a little less than 1/2 cup, but that'll do. I'm gonna let this just cool a little bit and work on my dry ingredients. I need 2 cups of flour, and this is a 1/2 cup measure. So I need 4 1/2 cups. 2 tablespoons of sugar. I consider sugar a wet ingredient. Usually you add it with the wet ingredients. It's all going in the same bowl, so we're just gonna do it right now. A teaspoon of salt, 4 teaspoons of baking powder. There's a baby with hiccups directly behind the camera. And I'm gonna give these a mix. Into this bowl, I'm gonna add my 2 eggs, my 1.5 cups of milk, plus my 1/2 cup almost of coconut oil, and a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And we'll give this a mix. The yolks of those eggs really are so yellow. They made the baked oatmeal and this batter so much more yellow than when I just used the regular, you know, cheapo eggs from Aldi. I'm gonna get all my ingredients put away while my waffle irons heat up, and we'll get these baked off in no time. My mini waffle iron is heated now, so I will get it going. And my big one is now heated as well. I use about 1/4 cup of batter in each of these. Doesn't have to be precise. It's pretty good. Put that on my cooling rack. That was a funny one. Those are pretty good. Unplug this one, let it cool. And this is what we've got from the morning. We have our baked oatmeal, our granola, and our waffles that are cooled and ready to go in the freezer. Well, that is it. Thank you so much for hanging out with me in my kitchen while I got these cooking projects done. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. It really helps out my channel. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye, guys.